Welcome to What's My Tagline, a show where we put the microphone in front of the people who are typically behind the scenes, those responsible for marketing, sales, social media, PR, and event management.
Hello and welcome to this special episode of What's My Tagline, recording live from HIMSS26 in Las Vegas, where I will be speaking to two guests this week, and pretty excited about both of them. My first is Amber Parmentier, who is the HIMSS Enterprise Marketing Director. Amber, welcome to What's My Tagline.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you coming down here to be in the studio. You're a busy person. But I'd like to begin with something like kind of interesting, because I understand that you're a Mahjong player, or you like Mahjong,
Yes.
and I would love to learn more about that and how it relates to marketing and healthcare.
Sure. So I recently became very obsessed with American Mahjong. When I first learned last summer, I learned that there was more than Chinese Mahjong, that there was an American version of the game. And for me, it was a really great way to meet a new community of people. So similar to how HIMSS has lots of communities and how you can find like-minded people through different connection points, for me, that was Mahjong. I moved to Austin, Texas. I didn't know a lot of people. I work from home. I don't have kids. So, meeting people is a challenge. So going to Mahjong events, I was able to really get a break from, my regular day, meet a lot of new people, and then it really keeps your brain quite sharp. There's a lot of research about how it helps prevent things like Alzheimer's. It's also a really great community game, so I have seen people at events like this just set out a board and suddenly you'll see a whole bunch of people come over. It's just one of those things that once people know how to play, they all really get involved as a community and really love it and promote it. So it's a really great activity for me.
Oh, that's great.
I brought my own set with me here to Vegas.
Oh, we can play afterwards.
Yes.
Or you can teach me how to play. I actually lived in Austin, Texas for 10 years, so it's kind of like my second hometown. So it's a great place to be. But talking about that connection, what you're talking about with the game of Mahjong, that's what HIMSS does, of course. It's a global conference bringing people from around the world. What strategies have you found most effective for engaging these audiences year in and year out with the HIMSS conference?
Sure. So as a HIMSS marketing director, we market directly to our members, Informa markets to the broader audience that attends the conference. But we work very closely with all of our internal stakeholders to find out what's really of interest to our different segments. So our providers, our clinicians, our government and policy groups, our student groups. What are the big things that are keeping them up at night, and who has those solutions and some ideas for them, and how can we bring them all together, and how can we make sure that what they're engaging with while they're in these different sessions, how are they getting something valuable that they take home with them to their community and bring those learnings into their workspace at home, and just help facilitate the connection of all the different healthcare information that's out in the world.
Right. It is one gigantic Mahjong board, right, with lots of tiles.
Mm-hmm. It really, yes, quite a few.
You get to move them around.
Yes.
I know a little bit about it, but yeah. So you have a strong background in experiential marketing and large industry events. Obviously, HIMSS is the granddaddy of, in my opinion, the events in our healthcare industry. In healthcare, where we talk about relationship building and trust and engagement, how important are these in-person conferences, and where are we going with this? Obviously, we're past COVID, right? Industry events are back again. How much bigger can HIMSS get, and what's the secret to that?
I don't know if it's necessarily better to be bigger. I think I am a big fan of always fewer better, to make sure that we're doing the right things and doing them well. I also come from a financial services background before healthcare, so I have a lot of experience in marketing in ways that is of interest to a consumer, but in a way that you are still taking your brand very seriously. I'm a big believer in not trying to do silly things with your brand, because you're a healthcare organization, and when you think about it, who do you want to not be silly?
Right.
Your doctors and your providers and the people that are taking care of you, like when you're sick and ill. So I think there's a lot of maintaining professionalism, but also being a human brand, have a human voice so that you are talking to people in a way that they understand and feel seen in terms of different things that they experience. And really giving people the opportunity to be heard. I think a lot of what people appreciate is the opportunity to find out what other people did wrong so that they can take those learnings. I know most of the things I've learned in my career that have helped me be a better marketer are things that I messed up at some point. So having those learnings, I think, is critical.
Yeah, and it's not the things that you do right so much that maybe defines your decisions, but how to do something better.
Never forget what you did wrong.
Never forget what you did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking ahead, obviously, AI, the current healthcare industry, all the things that are going on, how do you see marketing evolving over the next few years? You've obviously a seasoned marketing pro with a lot of experience and a deep background.
So I see a lot of positives to it. Personalized marketing works really well.
Oh yeah.
Especially there's so much noise out in the world now with 7 zillion channels, different email lists, like you just are inundated all day long. So when you receive something that is specific to you and you can see immediately that it's something that, hey, I needed to know this information.
Right.
And AI can definitely help support that. I've seen conferences that have the technology that AI will help you build your schedule. You put in your attendee type, you talk about different themes and topics you want to look at, and programs will help you build that schedule. So that saves you the time that it takes to, scroll through a schedule and click the different things. There's downsides to that because you might miss some things that you wanted to see. But things like gamification in that's a really great way to get people to engage at conferences. I see that there's also, this isn't necessarily tech forward, but having a little bit of scarcity of the different items that you're giving out. If people see them, they really are like, I want to get this, and I'll sit through your presentation. So that's something that's just an interesting, if you have a good giveaway, you want to make
scarce.
Exactly. Yep.
It's a scarce resource.
Yeah.
That's all, supply and demand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you missed the little stuffed little tiger, because there weren't that many of them, right? Yeah. You just want it more.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of the content that gets captured here is now available online for learning. So at HIMSS, our professional development team records a lot of these sessions that have certification credits available to professionals. And a lot of things are now available online post-conference, which is great because you set up all this time and you can only really reach a limited number of people based on the space that's in the room that your session is. So being able to record things and make them later available on demand, streaming events, things like that, it's just a great way to just have additional channels to get the same content out there to people.
Yeah, and in the way that people want to consume it.
Right, and maybe you couldn't make it this week because you had a conflict with something else, but there was 5 really great sessions that were really important for you to get. So that's something that our HIMSS members, they get access to a lot of gated content like that. So it's another good benefit.
Exactly. So as we wrap up here, tell me what's next event-wise for the year for HIMSS? What do you got going on?
Sure. So this event is part of our global flagship series.
Yep.
So the next one is in Copenhagen in late May. That's our European conference. And then in August, we have our APAC event in Singapore. So I think that's August 23rd to 25th.
Wow.
So what we do is we take a lot of the theme from this event that we have here in Las Vegas, and we pull through that messaging and that creative look through those global conferences. So we have like kind of a flagship theme and vibe that goes through, and so you'll see some of that consistency. And then we have a really cool Future of AI in Healthcare series that we're doing this year. We've done some AI in healthcare forums the last couple of years, and they've been really successful. And our program team partners with a group of AI professionals, and they are our thought leaders that help us form the programming. So we have 2 AI forums, one in Boston, one in San Diego, and each of those events have a pre-conference day that is designed for a group of 65 executives that are really looking at the most C-suite, top-level
Wow.
issues around AI. So those are really interesting in terms of what conversations happen in those rooms. Those events take place in Boston in June and in October in San Diego. And then part of that, for the first time, we're also doing a digital web series for AI, and it's all under this future of AI in healthcare.
Future of AI in healthcare, yeah.
All of this stuff is on our HIMSS events website, which is right off HIMSS.org. So more to see, but I'm really excited about those events. We have a really great roster of speakers. They're smaller events, so 200-300 people for the other forums, which that's personally my size of event that I personally feel comfortable with in terms of, you're there for a couple of days, you start to recognize people, and it's less overwhelming, and you get to, make some more real connections that are a little easier to make. A
little bit more intimate.
Yes.
Amber, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Great, successful HIMSS.
Thank you.
Welcome back to our live recording at HIMSS26. I'm your host, Carol Flagg, and joining me, my second guest in this special episode that we're recording, is Shahid Shah. And rather than give your title and company, because your resume is probably as long as this conference center is, really do me a favor and do our audience a favor and just give us the high level who you are, Shahid Shah, and then we'll talk about why I've got you on the show today.
Awesome. No, I appreciate you having me here. In a nutshell, I'm a software engineer. I build things. I've got about 25 or so patents to my name. So I invent a lot, build a lot, and I try to apply that knowledge to 2 or 3 key areas. One is in government IT, one is in medical devices, and the third is in digital health. So I've built and sold a few EHR companies and done a number of other startups, but I just love to build things and talk to people who are building things. But these days, because building is so much easier than it has ever been, meaning writing code or throwing a company together, etc., what's really, really hard now is understanding the product market fit, understanding what will buyers actually buy. So that's what I've been spending a lot of my time on these days.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because I know, full transparency, I know you pretty well. I've known you for many years. You host a radio show on our network called Trending Now. And I know that one of the things you really are passionate about is this idea of marketing aside, conferences aside, messaging aside, what is really happening out there from a digital and software development, and what are the buyers really looking for and what they're looking to gain from those products.
Yeah, and so I would say one word that can encapsulate all of that, both here at HIMSS and elsewhere, is just confusion. Builders aren't quite sure what buyers will actually buy in a point solution, because you always hear from the smartest CIOs and the smartest buyers, sell us a platform, sell us something that will handle things end to end. But they never describe what end to end means. Right. They never describe, well, what does a platform mean to them? So instead, they end up saying they want platforms and they don't want to buy point solutions. But they do end up buying point solutions because those large platforms and large end-to-end solutions, aside from your massive EHRs, aside from Google and Microsoft and everybody else, those are real platforms and they do exist, but they don't solve the end-to-end problem. So hospitals and CIOs today are seeing that, if they look at margin erosion, if they've gone from 2% margins to 1% margin or 5% margins to 3% margins, that is a number one problem for them. Them going from being able to retain the proper number of physicians and hire the right number of nurses, who to credential and how to credential them. How do you move people and do staff scheduling? How do you understand how to staff both the surgical and non-surgical areas? So when you look at the actual business problems that hospitals and health systems are having, it's beyond just what an EHR can do. And so to say that we have an EHR, therefore we have a platform, is insufficient at a minimum, right. And just completely missing the boat at a maximum. Right. So even mid-sized companies, let's say you're a small physician provider, say with 10, 15, 20 physicians, you've got the same problems as a lot of your hospital colleagues. You have the same pool of talent, you have roughly the same EHR, capabilities, but you're competing. Sometimes the big boys are competing with the little guys who are far more nimble. Sometimes the little guys are competing with the big boys. And so when I work with builders of software, builders of technology, even medical devices, what I hear them talking about is, here is what we do. This is how our software works. These are the features of my software. As opposed to saying, I talked to 5 staffers, even just staffers, nurses, doctors, mid-level executives, and here's what they said their problem is, right? So all of us have to remember that people are buying things, and it almost sounds trite to say it, makes somebody feel dumb to say, well, what problem are you solving? But it's so important, right? It's and that's really what I like coming to events like HIMSS at, is really see what the solutions are. But you can see, imagine you're a buyer of any system, just walking down this hallway,
right.
You made a selection. Let's imagine you made a selection for a product. You are sure that this product is going to do what you want to do. And imagine then you come to HIMSS. What are you going to do? First thing you're going to do is second guess it, like, holy cow, I didn't even know.
Every time. I did not. So, and I, you know, we are at HIMSS, we are looking at the exhibitors and their messaging and their branding and their demos and all that. On that confusion baseline that you're talking about, has AI, the overlay of AI, has that made that exacerbated the confusion, or is it helping to lessen the confusion?
No, it's going to exacerbate it, but for natural reasons.
Yeah.
It's a new technology unlike we've seen before because of its wide-scale applicability to so many different use cases.
Right.
So when somebody says, for example, now, if an Epic or a Cerner or an Athena or an eClinicalWorks says, well, I also have AI in my EHR, it causes a bit of deer in headlights look for buyers to say, well, why should I look at anything else?
Right.
Well, that is what causes more confusion, is to say, well, all my data is in this system of record, which is not quite true. Let's say a lot of data is in that system of record, but not all of it. So the AI part itself is causing confusion, not the least of which is that it's really not AI. The way to think about it is, are you building deterministic automation systems that can improve your productivity for your staff? And deterministic means same input always gives you the same output. So for decades, since the first computers came out in the 1940s, they've always been deterministic. You write a program, you take input, you get output. What we really mean by AI is we now have ability to do 2 new things that we've never had before. Thing 1 is it is a reasoning system. Thing 2 is it is probabilistic. But that's just like us as humans.
Yeah.
We are probabilistic and we are reasoning systems.
Right.
So now think about it is to say, well, I have all this labor that I need to do. I can improve productivity for my current labor by buying deterministic automation systems to help me inject in my workflow, etc. Or I can look at what labor I want to replace with code. And so the main confusion here is, when you say AI, are you improving my productivity for humans I've already, quote, purchased and installed in my environment? Another word for hiring. Yeah. We've hired them, we've educated them, we've trained them, and we've put them in. Are you helping me improve productivity and augment those humans in some deterministic way, which doesn't require me to rethink liability, which doesn't require me to rethink how I get you into my shop? Or are you giving me reasoning probabilistic systems which have not been educated by me, which have not been trained by my system, which means I got to figure out, can I make them autonomous or not? Because if they're not autonomous and I'm still using humans to do the work, you put me back in category number 0. So, but if you've got this capability to help me replace portions of labor as code, and this one quick note to everybody is, no doctor, no nurse, no NP, no PA, anybody with a clinical credential degree, no one's losing their job anytime soon to any kind of AI. We are way, way far behind on
Don't lose sleep over that.
Do not
lose sleep over something else, not that, right?
Not that, right? So putting that aside, when I say labor as code, it means there are things that we do with humans that they could easily replace. Like last night's dinner, we were talking about the idea of burnout, and one of our colleagues basically said, burnout doesn't occur on the things that you love and want to do. Burnout occurs because somebody's forcing you to do stuff that you don't want to do.
Right.
So if you took that example and said, okay, well, what are the things that we don't want to do? Could we turn them into labor as code, put them into an AI agent, and autonomously execute them?
Right.
That's not what's being offered on the show floor here.
No, right.
That's the confusion.
That's the confusion. And you've been coming to HIMSS, obviously, for many, 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 many years. As have I, but I have I'm always got a different lens on things, things are always happy and bright, and look at that swag, that shiny toy, and I want this, and, great messaging, I don't have that perception or the challenge or the goal even of being somebody on the clinical side, from a provider, from a hospital, trying to find something that will solve a problem or a series of problems, right? And over the years in this history of HIMSS, is that problem becoming more problematic?
So HIMSS is actually doing a really good job in recent years of helping organize problem domains.
Yeah.
So there are sessions, and especially the pre-conference sessions.
Right.
They grouped everybody nicely. So as a educational platform, HIMSS is actually doing really, really well because you need, HIMSS, when I first joined HIMSS, it was always a professional development organization.
Yeah, sure, of course.
First
yeah.
and foremost.
Yeah.
And you happen to see colleagues at the events, and then sometimes you could buy things. It has, unfortunately, for obvious reasons, for commercialization, monetization, etc. You need the sponsors here for all the good reasons that they are here. Now, the problem is, at the moment, you have the hosted buyer exchanges, the connections that help buyers understand what they can get. But because, especially in the AI world, even the vendors are naturally confused about what business they're in.
Right.
Because the buyers are confused what problems that they're trying to solve.
Right.
This is our probably existential issue for larger events like this is, how do we understand what we're educating people on are X, the sponsors are selling X prime at a minimum, or Z, like a completely different thing.
Right.
How do you connect those so that when you go to the education sessions, instead of the sponsors just sponsoring, they actually run the demos in the education session? So there's always been this thought, especially because you're a lot better at marketing and sales than I am, but when you always think to yourself, you're like, well, I don't want to be too salesy.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Something like that. I don't think that applies anymore. Nobody comes to a conference to not be sold to.
Right.
There's education sessions. They're literally sponsored.
Right.
The sponsor's name is on there. You are selling something.
Right.
Just come out and say it. Right. Give us the demo. Walk us through it. Tell us what mistakes people have been making. So this idea that we have to be, quote, non-salesy applies to the fact that you shouldn't be a butthead, right? You shouldn't be, if you're selling a solution and you are walking your customers through a problem that they have agreed is a problem. Right. Now, so if you're trying to sell a ambient scribe to an RCM manager, shame on you, right? But if you're selling the ambient scribe to a physician, you've got a connection there. There's a product market fit there, and be as salesy as you need to be, because that's the whole point. They're asking you for the sale. So as you look at HIMSS, what I see is probably some more convergence needs to occur to say this is a place where you come to learn and buy things. Right. You're not writing the check here, but you're coming here to buy things.
The minute you walk out on the exhibit floor, you're coming to look at something. You're just not going to be walking around browsing for things that, that's not what happens. Right. So let's move past HIMSS. And let's talk about another show. And you and I have chatted over the last few weeks, and we're excited to announce that a show just for you, the Shahid Shah Show, is going to be joining Healthcare Now Radio Network. And we're very excited. We got about 2 minutes left. Give our audience a quick overview of what the Shahid Show will bring to the table.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you guys giving me that opportunity, because much like what we were just talking about, the amount of difficulty people have now on not how do I build something, but why should I build it, and what should I build? And then you have the twin problem on the buyer side. Why should I buy something, and what do I buy? Right. So when you look at these two, there are a lot of analyst firms and others out there. They're doing a great job. Whether you go to Gartner or Forrester or Class and others, you identify things, you talk to analysts. but that's not the analysts there often are not coming from the builder side. They've not built these solutions. Like in my career, I've built them, sold them, helped install them, operate them, lost customers because I did something dumb, and I've done it with everything from digital health and consumer-based front ends all the way to Class 3 and PMA, pre-market approval type of applications, including on the pharma side as well as on medical devices. And the problem domain of understanding why you should build something and what you should build based on what reimbursements you can get, how to get payments from consumers, there's a lot of problems that are not solved with the kind of education that we're getting from other places. So I thought I'd fill that hole by doing one, instead of just saying, oh, here's what I'll talk about every week, there's actually a nice GitHub site where you can actually post your questions and say, I'd love to hear more about this problem. I'd love to hear more about this problem. And so by getting the audience more involved, getting them to tell us what their problems and issues are, that's where I'm going to help take the show starting point, and then take it from there. Wherever the audience wants to go is the way we'll move on.
I love it. And the audience can look forward. Look to probably the month of April, sometime in April, for the debut of the Shahid Shah Show. Shahid, thank you for joining me on a special episode of What's My Tagline, live from HIMSS. Learn more about this show and all of our shows at healthcarenowradio.com. Have a question, a guest suggestion, you want to connect with Shahid, send me an email at carol@healthcarenowradio.com. Until next time, I want to know, what's your tagline?